It's a new year and there are some new projects underway for the White Bear Lake Police Department. We'll talk with Chief Julie Swanson in this half hour.
Who knew freezing could look so good? We'll tell you why thousands of people got cold for a worthy cause. Hello, I'm Tracy Minarchuk.
And I'm Ron Hawkins. Welcome to Lake Area Beat. It's a new year and with it, new plans for the White Bear Lake Police Department.
Police Chief Julie Swanson is here to talk about department goals in 2015. Chief, thank you for being here.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Now, in the last year, we've had a lot of changes. You've been police chief for a year now. And we've already had some kind of updates on things. Our records management system is new, and we've been using that since January, and I like it.
That's good. You're very good at it. We're good that we have you on board because it's very helpful.
How has it been in 2014 up till now for you?
Things have gone really well. Like you said, we got a new records management system, which was a very big deal. And with that was a new CAD system for our dispatch center. And those are big changes. It hasn't been changed since, well, the records management since 2005 and the CAD since before that. It was unique because it resulted in us going off on our own and separating from the Ramsey County CAD. But it is nice because it's very personal and we are able to have it function as we need to have it function for White Bear Lake and for the citizens of White Bear. The biggest positive thing that came out of having our CAD was it's very helpful with our ambulance dispatching and our fire dispatching, as Ron knows. So it's been good to have that. Some other things that have gone on is we did hire a captain last June. You guys had him on the show, and from that he became a really big deal, it sounds like. And he's been a great addition to the department.
And we're talking about Dale Hager.
Correct, yeah.
The big
Captain
deal.
Hager, yeah. And he's a good sport. That's all I can say. He's been on the show for a few different things, and he is a very good sport about things. He's got a great sense of humor, and he's a good fit for a captain's role. And just different changes with people switching around responsibilities, and some of the investigators have transitioned back out onto patrol, one transitioned in, so it's fun to see the changes. It's hard to look back in a year and think about things that have changed because it just goes every day and you forget about some of those changes, but we've moved towards just becoming a little bit more progressive with our technology.
And it seems we've had a lot of changes, but we actually have more changes coming too. It seems like we're constantly trying to improve in the department.
Right, I think that's a good thing. We have just some different ideas with our dispatching. We are very busy with dispatch, so we've started having 2 dispatchers on duty versus 1, which that's a very big change for all of us because we've been so used to being a small dispatch. But with our population and with our calls for service and with the need for police and fire, we've had to add some additional staffing, and that's great because I think it helps the dispatchers to have some support in there. They have a very tough job and they do it all on their own every day, so that's been a big change, and we have some different programs starting this year as well.
And I think citizens probably have been surprised that we did only have one person in dispatch answering the phone calls, dispatching to police and fire for emergencies and running things, and they've been very busy. So I think it's been something that we've needed for a long time, and I think the dispatchers are probably a little more at ease with handling when a big emergency happens, like a fire or a crash involving several vehicles and injuries and stuff.
I imagine it takes them a long time to go home and decompress at the end of a day because you're listening to a radio for 11 hours or 12 hours and you're watching the window to see if window traffic's coming in. Occasionally you'll have a dog sitting in there waiting for its mom and dad to come find them.
And doing 10 different things all at the same time.
Exactly. It's a very underestimated job, I think, at times because they have a lot of multitasking and they have that customer service portion of it too, having the window there and being open 24 hours a day.
So any other new projects going on this year, or anything that's on the radar for the near future?
There are several things. One of the biggest things that we just started working with the county attorney's office and Maplewood Police and then our city prosecutor, Rob Olson, on a domestic abuse protocol. And the basis of, we're piloting a project in Ramsey County to try to get more convictions at the misdemeanor level for domestic abuse, so that those, when we have those convictions at the misdemeanor level, it will enhance future charges. You know, we do see a lot of repeat offenders, and as you've seen in the news most recently, there's a lot of domestic abuse that has gone on, and this is just a project to try to make sure we're enhancing these, or getting these convictions at the misdemeanor level, so that it will enhance a felony conviction later. Because as we know, there's not always maybe the right jail time that goes along with a misdemeanor conviction. So we are one of 2 agencies in Ramsey County piloting that project for the next 2 years. The county attorney has dedicated a prosecutor to work in our prosecutor's office, and that's all that she is focusing on is convictions for domestic abuse in Maplewood and White Bear Lake. So that's very unique because they are typically downtown St. Paul, and they typically work at the felony level. So it will help them better understand what we see at the misdemeanor level, and then it also has us have somebody very personal and close to go to if we have questions. And part of it is just the way that we investigate them to make sure we have more evidence and more things put into our reports that will allow it to stand up in court.
And there, I think, just a few changes in the way that we handle things, and that investigators now will be investigating misdemeanor cases as well. Even though the officer has already done it, we're talking to people and we're using tape recorders to interview not only the suspects but the victims as well. And are there any? I know we've got the domestic abuse sheet that we fill out that we send into family violence about the lethality assessment for suspects. Is there anything else? Any other changes on the patrol level?
I think, like you said, the biggest changes are typically when we had a misdemeanor domestic, the officer charged it out, they put the person in jail, and then that person went to court the next day. Now we are recording statements as opposed to having them written, because you do capture a lot of emotion in that original or that initial 1 hour of talking to somebody, and you can't relay that in a written format. So we are recording the witness or the victim statements and the witness statements, and then the investigator is following up the next day with the suspect and also with the victim, just to try to make sure that we are tending the needs that they might have, and just so that they have a case update. I think sometimes people because we've taken care of the problem for the night, maybe they start to have second thoughts. And so we want to reach out and make sure that we are helping explain to them where the process is going, and try to give them the right resources. And I should say that Tubman also is a partner with this Tubman Family Alliance, and they are helping with making sure that we are following up with the victims and getting the right resources to the victims. So like you said, we don't see a huge change in the way we were doing it, other than maybe just the way we take statements or
Right.
The follow-up portion of it, so that we just make sure that we're tending to them. I think the bigger aspect of it is on the prosecution end, and making sure that we're getting convictions. Oftentimes they're either dismissed or pled down just based on maybe evidence that wasn't collected or that wasn't sufficient. So we just want to make sure we're doing a better job to make sure that it doesn't keep happening.
So I don't know if this ties into that or not, but I'm just kind of curious what you hear from the general public as to, or what are some of the biggest complaints? They call in, they say, gosh, I wish the cops were more involved in this or that.
I think most recently we've had a lot of complaints. We have had a rash of burglaries in the south end of our city. There's been some arrests in neighboring agencies. We haven't tied those suspects to our burglaries, but our burglaries certainly have improved since that time. So it makes you believe that maybe they were our suspects too. We have some evidence that is still being processed through the BCA to see if we can link them to ours. That was a big concern for people these last 6 months. It started in about August, and we were very public about it because we wanted to get it to stop. We don't know who belongs in a neighborhood and who doesn't, and we did some surveillance in the neighborhood and had to just relay to the neighbors to make sure they're calling in suspicious activity, which they did because they called in on us, so that was good. So that's a concern because there's nothing more personal to somebody than their home, and when they're violated in their home, obviously they want to see something happen. So, and we do too. And then secondly, I think, as always, traffic. We saw a lot of construction in the city, and that slowed a lot of things down, but we also have a lot of traffic concerns. People think that speeding is a big concern, and it is a big concern. I will say the officers are great about being very proactive with their traffic enforcement. Not everybody likes that, but we just have to slow down because that is definitely a quality of life issue.
And car accidents,
Yes.
which we had some yesterday of people speeding or not paying attention to lights and traffic and
Right.
busy rush hour.
So real quickly, a brief overview of CERT. What's CERT?
That's one of the next projects we have starting in mid-March, and it kind of derived from some of our people from the Citizens Police Academy. It's a program that Captain Hager had worked with in Lino Lakes, and it's the Community Emergency Response Team. And their role is to become volunteers for the department, but we will train them, and some of them have already been trained, in how to respond to community emergencies, such as the tornado in Hugo. They would have been a great use for that. They have gear bags that they will have at home with them, and it's people that we can add on to police and fire when we need to respond to a community emergency.
And these would be regular citizens
Yeah,
from White Bear
right.
Lake. And if they want more information,
We do have something on our Facebook page today, and also on the city website. There's some flyers around the community, or they can contact Officer Isaac Tuma at the police department. He spearheads our Citizens Police Academy and is spearheading this as well.
And just really quick, so we have to wrap up because we've got so much stuff going on with the police department, and we appreciate you being here. But if the public, there's been a lot of headlines about law enforcement lately and questioning law enforcement, and what are your thoughts on meeting with community or maybe groups within the community that want to reach out to the police department?
That has been a tough balance, I think, for police departments. I enjoy when people call us and ask us to come speak at the community events. I think we're a great police department. I'm really proud to be a member of it, and I'm proud to work with the people that I do. So I don't fear being transparent to people in the public because I believe we do a very good job. But sometimes it's just to help the public understand what we do or why we do it the way that we do it. So I would encourage anybody to invite us out. I know that you have a group coming up in a couple of weeks that you're talking with, and it's just important for them to put a name with the face and also understand our jobs a little bit better, and then us to understand what their needs are in the community also.
well, thank you, Chief Swanson.
Thank you for having me.
We better get you back because you've got a lot of stuff to do.
Thank you.
Law enforcement students from Northeast Metro 916 began a class project last fall meant to teach kindergartners from Webster Elementary how to be good citizens.
Little did they know the children would be teaching them a little something too. Here's that story.
It was a big day for a class of senior law enforcement students,
There she is. You're with Xander.
but an even bigger one for kindergartners coming face to face with their bigger buddies.
This is Mariah. She goes to Webster Elementary.
Students from Northeast Metro 916 have been corresponding with these kindergartners for several months, meeting them today for the first time.
Bella, you're with Abby.
It was part of a class project, a way to give back to those in need. They brought over 200 pounds of food, 465 hats, and volumes of life lessons.
It's basically a little story about, not eating too many cookies or else you get a tummy ache. We're supposed to have a little lesson in there.
Daniel Leonard shared with his pal the importance of sharing.
A young girl has no Legos, and she feels bad about it. And a boy in the class sees that she feels bad and gives her Legos, and they're friends forever.
Like most younger children, they look up to older ones.
We know the ropes a little bit, and we could pass some information on to them to get them going. Try and be good role models to them. get them off on a good track.
But the kindergartners weren't the only ones getting schooled.
A tootie-ta, a tootie-ta, a tootie-ta-ta.
They reminded their senior buddies what it's like to be a kid again.
So Tracy, you have a lot of experience working with the elementary age kids. How do you relate to them? How do they relate to you?
They're pretty awesome, actually. Teaching DARE with them is a good thing for law enforcement because they have contact with us and we have contact with them. It gives them a chance to not only learn the material that you're there to teach, but as in the clip, you learn something too and you interact with them and it gives them kind of a friend or somebody that they know that they can talk to and they feel they can trust you. So it's kind of a, it serves two purposes. So
I know they certainly look up to you.
oh, well, thanks. They're fun. I love the DARE kids. They're awesome.
Go DARE. We're going to take a break, but first,
Here's Sergeant John Betty with a potentially life-saving tip.
Time is of the essence in an emergency, especially if your life or the life of your loved one is in danger. Hello, I'm Sergeant John Vetty, asking you to help us help you. In an emergency, we want to get to your house as quickly as possible. Please make sure to have house numbers properly labeled and visible. Too often, house numbers are not, and this slows down the response time of police officers and ambulance drivers. White Bear Lake City Ordinance requires homes to be clearly marked with a unit or identification number, and the numbers cannot be less than 4 inches in height and must be of a contrasting color to the base they're posted to. If you help us, we'll have an easier time helping you. I'm Sergeant John Vetty, and I'll see you next time.
Welcome back. He may have retired from the fire department, but he hasn't lost his sense of duty.
Mike Mack is here to tell us about this year's play to benefit the White Bear Lake Lions Club. Welcome to the show,
Hey,
Mike.
thank you very much.
So give us a little background for those of us, or for those that have not met you. You've been on the fire department, you've been involved in the Lions Club.
Yeah, I retired 4 years ago from the department after 30 plus years on the fire department and been involved in the Lions for over 39 years. So this year's show is our 69th annual show, and I've had the pleasure to be in 39 of them. So I started as a small child, I'll say that.
And you've been involved in not only being in the production, but you've had some other duties with the production as well?
Yep, I've written, I think this will be my 13th show that I've had the pleasure of authoring. So, and it's very much of a family affair too. So my wife and my daughter and my sisters and my dog are all in the show this year. So we're looking for a fun time to be had.
And you've had family in the past being on shows as well.
Both my sisters, my mom has even done one show, scared to death to be on stage, but she did it anyway, and my dad. And so it's been a long time family tradition.
That's nice.
So the Lions Club in general, tell us maybe, I guess, a little background on the Lions Club.
Sure. Lions are the largest service organization in the world. There's something like 1.4 million members in clubs in something like 200 and some countries. And we raise money through activities like the show, and all of it is required to go back to the community. So we do a lot of things around the food shelf, the Lion Mobile, schools. We buy dictionaries for all of the third graders in the school district and thesauruses for all the fifth graders, and a variety of different things that the club helps support within the community.
So in order for you to be that generous and donating all that money and all those good things, you have to bring money in. And the play is one of the things that brings money in as fundraiser. What are some other things?
We do the Bearwater Run in September, which is a 10 and 20 mile running event around the lake itself. And we have probably 800 runners that participate, many of them training for Twin Cities Marathon. They're getting a long 20 mile run in before the marathon. So that is another thing. We do charitable gambling. We do Market Fest games and things like that. Anything that we can kind of come up with that's worthwhile to raise some money.
And this year's play is coming up.
It is.
And you have written this year's play, and what
Right.
is it called?
It's called Peter's Pants, and it's my kind of take on the traditional Peter Pan show. The dates are March 5th, 6th, and 7th, and we have evening performances at 7 p.m., and on Saturday we do a matinee at 2 p.m. And at Central Middle School, we're looking everybody to come out and see the show, and we think we'll have a good one for you.
Now, how long does it take for you to put something like this together, from writing it or getting people to be in the show?
It's a lot of man hours that put the show together, from building sets and making costumes and doing dance practices. We had our weekly dance practice last night, so we have a professional choreographer that gets us folks with 2 left feet to learn how to dance, and we have a great time putting it. But it's a lot of time, a lot of effort. Start rehearsals the first weekend in January, and then the show is in March.
And you mentioned a professional choreographer. Does anybody get paid for doing this?
Most of everything that we do is volunteer work. So that's whether that's Lions, our spouses or family or friends, they're all volunteering their time. So it's a great way to raise the money we're looking to do.
That's amazing.
And rehearsals, you said, start in January, so I imagine the script has to be done well before that.
Yeah, I'm notorious for waiting until like after Thanksgiving when I write a show to start writing it, but I got her done a little bit earlier this year, and it takes me, if I get on a roll when I write, I can write it in a couple of weekends. And
Sometimes you just need that deadline.
people that are in charge of the show, yes, they put the pressure on me to get her done, so we can, assign tasks and roles in the show itself. And then we, like I said, we have people that are talented at building sets, and they'll help us do that. And the seamstresses that make the costumes. It's quite an endeavor.
And I guess just kind of a general idea of how much money is raised on the show. Are you okay with sharing?
Sure, because it all goes back to the community. So we're hoping to raise between $10,000 and $20,000 profit in the show, and it's all really dependent on people coming to see the show, buying the tickets, and they can get ticket information off of our website, www.whitebearlions.org. And there's a link to the show information. They can buy tickets online or talk to a lion. And then we also ask our business community to contribute and buy ads in our show program. And it's good advertising for them, and another way we can raise money and offset some of the expenses to put the show together.
Mm-hmm. And the police department and the fire department have been recipients of the generosity of the Lions Club, so I thank you. And
you bet.
And the
For
Lions
all the
Club
time and all the work and everything that goes into it, not just now but year round.
Yeah, we are a very active club in White Bear Lake, and if there are people that are interested in joining our club, we'd love to have you too. We meet a couple of nights a month on Thursdays, be the second and fourth Thursday of the month as a club, and love to have new people in our club, get that new blood going, and more people that want to come and help out.
Well, thanks a lot, Mike. And I know I've been to several of the shows, and they're awesome. They're great. It's just
Funny.
a great production.
Entertaining.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, we try.
right.
We're going to try again this year.
And thanks for being here. It's good to see you again. We
Thank
haven't
you.
seen you
You
for
too.
a while.
You bet. Thank you.
And here are those dates and contact sites for more information or to buy tickets.
We're going to take a break, but stay tuned. We'll show you highlights from one of the biggest Frozen fundraisers when we return.
Every year, people ask why we do it. Why we jump into a frozen lake during the middle of winter.
Is because the money we raise goes for a very worthy cause. We leave you with a look at the 2015 Polar Plunge highlights. We'll see you next time.
Our chilly Friday morning right now, and you get to see the plunge site from its initial stages, and it's kind of interesting, like you said, when you guys come out tomorrow and you actually see kind of the carnival atmosphere that's in the air. It's a good contrast as to how this all gets set up. I mean, you see the bare and ice right now. By tomorrow, when the decking is put up and you see the plunge site set up, you see the bare inflated, you see the warming tunnel all inflated, you kind of get a whole new perspective on it. This has always been the first plunge of the polar plunge season for Special Olympics, and it's just a good kickoff for us to start looking at the number of plungers who are registered online as of this morning. I mean, 1,400 plungers for the white bear plunge alone. Already donations collected online is at almost $200,000.
Come on out and get cold and wet.
So thankful and so proud of our law enforcement people. Not only do they put their life on the line every day, but you see them out here on days when normally they would take off or do whatever, and they are out doing this for us. And, you know, shoot, my hats are off to them always.
Enforcement are brave. They're here year after year taking the plunge. But what about the rest of the people? Are they brave too, or simply crazy?
We are the number one in podcast monster. So we're finally gonna get a sighting. I'm not going in, so I think she's crazy. Come on now. It's a very requested film. A lot of superheroes.